Imagine leaving everything you know for a better future, only to face rejection from everyone you love. That's what happened when my brother helped me escape a controlling family, but now, he's fallen deeply into depression. Hi, I, 20F, am currently in my 4th semester of college. The fact that I am able to go to college is largely thanks to my brother Mike, 27M. This resulted in us both being estranged from family, and the reason for this post is that I need to help him with his resulting depression and isolation. Some backstory. We come from a patriarchal, conservative Christian background, although we didn't really practice. But everything was always in the obey your parents vibe. My parents, both 43, are the oldest siblings in their families. My father's family, parents, 2 brothers, 1 sister, all live within 20 minutes of my parents' home. All aunts, uncles are married, and I have 8 cousins on that side. My mother's family is originally from here as well but has all since left the area. Grandparents moved to a retirement community in AZ several years ago. Uncle is career military, currently stationed somewhere I don't know. And Aunt Kay moved to AZ after graduating college for her career. We are from a Midwest US state and are Caucasian. This whole situation started when my older sister Lisa, 22F, was in college back in spring of 2020. Right before COVID shut down her college that March, she got pregnant after a party. She didn't know until after she was back home. In fall 2020, my senior year of high school, I started my college application process while my pregnant sister lived at home. Mike had finished school several years prior and had started his career about 90 minutes away from our hometown. Lisa gave birth to twins a few days after Thanksgiving 2020. In January 2021, I received my early acceptance to my dream school, not something like Harvard, but a highly rated public Ivy in my state. I had also gotten enough of a scholarship to cover tuition, but not room and board. Obviously, I was ecstatic. Unfortunately, that was about to come crashing down. In May 2021, my parents told me that I could not go to school and that I needed to stay home to raise my nieces while my sister went back to school since she needed to support her kids and thus needed a better education. Much yelling ensued, with my father eventually telling me that his decision was final and that was that. Well, Mike learned what happened, called me, and said, "Yeah, that's not happening," and we made plans. I would like to take a moment to give a shout out to the Reddit post back in early 2021 that discussed the steps to take and things, documents to gather in order to successfully leave home for good. And that's what we did. We had discussed plans a few times when he visited and took me out to lunch, and one day that July, I had my essentials all packed, left a letter for our parents, and after lunch, we just went back to his apartment. As you can imagine, the fallout was explosive, starting with angry calls and texts and leading to us both being disowned by the family for being disloyal. Mike had predicted this, and we were both prepared for it. So it wasn't a surprise. Anyway, that August, he paid my remaining school balance and dropped me off at my dorm, and I have been living and studying here since then. He has continued to pay my room and board and whatever else scholarships didn't cover ever since. I cannot thank him enough for what he has done for me. Since then, we have had pretty much no contact with our parents, sister, and all aunts, uncles, and grandparents on dad's side. I am still in contact with 2 cousins, F19, F17, who support me and think we made the right decision. We do have contact with mom's side and have both flown out to AZ the last 2 holiday seasons to spend time with them. This past holiday is when Aunt Kay first talked to me about her concerns for Mike that she noticed. They are very close, she is only 3 years older than him, and we all grew up together in our grandparents' house, so they are like siblings, and I guess she picked up on some things that were off. The issue I need help with. Aunt Kay and I have noticed Mike becoming more depressed and isolated, and I need help figuring out how to support him. Mike is somewhat introverted and has always had a very small social circle, and a lot of his social outlet was with our extended paternal family. There were family BBQs very often, especially during football season, when it was pretty much weekly. Throw in holidays, birthdays, etc., and there were probably 2 big family events a month minimum. Mike was able to attend most of those, and he always tried to hang out with my dad and uncles, even though they always acted lukewarm toward him. With that now gone for the past 18 months, he hasn't really had that outlet. So please, any advice would be appreciated. He gave me my life back, and I need to find a way to do the same for him. Thank you all. Note, I do plan on sharing this post with him when he visits me next weekend. My school is about a 2-hour drive from where he lives, so he meets me for lunch 2 to 3 times per month. I want to be able to sit down, read this through with him, and talk with him about everything, so thank you again. TL. Dr. My brother helped me escape life as a forced nanny and go to college. We both got disowned by family, and he is becoming depressed. I am looking for ways to help him. Update. Hi, I just wanted to post a quick update to what I shared last week. I say quick, But it's probably going to be long, so apologies in advance, just trying to get everything out of my head. Mike came down here on Saturday as planned. I had spoken to my Aunt Kay before this, and she thought if I gently asked direct questions and probed, he would answer. So that was my plan. My roommates knew the situation and what I was planning to do, and they were understanding and agreed to give us the apartment to ourselves for the afternoon. After he arrived and we ate, I just straight up said to him that Aunt Kay and I had noticed some changes in his behavior and that he seemed really down. He looked at me for a bit and then slowly nodded and agreed. I took this as a good sign that he would be open and honest with me. I said that I wanted to help him, to please be open and talk to me, and that I wouldn't judge him for anything. He said okay. Then I pulled out my laptop and mentioned that I had made a post to Reddit about him, and he gave me a very confused look. I sat down next to him and asked him to just read it and then we could talk about it. Well, he basically broke down with his head in his hands after reading the title. So yeah, I guess it was pretty accurate. I just held him and said that we would talk whenever he was ready. After a few minutes, he was able to collect himself, and we went through the whole post together. Then we started reading the comments one at a time and talking about each one. He took all of the comments and suggestions to heart, and we talked about how he could put himself out there more both in dating and trying to make new friends. In typical nerd fashion, he even broke all of the ideas down into categories: outdoor, indoor, online, and is willing to give pretty much anything a try. The city he lives in isn't huge, but a quick look through its subreddit found a few things, so the opportunity is there. He seemed a little embarrassed, in a good way, about all of the praise he was getting. I knew he would be, but I just told him that other people see him for the wonderful brother that he is. There were a couple of comments that mentioned serious concerns like self-harm or substance abuse that I really pressed him on. He promised he wasn't doing drugs or drinking excessively. In all of the times I was at his place, he never had more than a 6-pack of Guinness or some craft beer. This is something I am definitely going to keep an eye on because I don't want him to cope with his pain in an unhealthy way. He said while he never really thought about actually hurting himself, he sometimes feels lost and has dark thoughts that really mess up his mood. He said he was struggling and very frustrated with himself at times. He often can't even look at himself in a mirror because he feels embarrassed about where he is in life outside of work compared to his friends. Really, he feels like his closest friends have all moved on to the next phase of their lives, and he's stuck, feeling left behind and unable to move forward. He's scared that he's going to turn into one of those people who have their own dedicated subreddit about being lonely. He often just drives around the city after work for hours because he doesn't want to go home. Every once in a while, he has gone to bed with the thought that he didn't really care if he woke up or not. All of this scared me and broke my heart. He agreed that this isn't healthy, a huge understatement, and that he needs to seek some professional help soon. We talked about his social life after college. He said that for the first couple of years, he and his closest friends and their significant others would meet a few times a week and travel somewhere together every few months. He's separated from his girlfriend of 4 years in 2019. He and his friends still met up after the lockdown started in 2020, but it became less and less frequent as his friends became more involved with their relationships and later kids. Eventually, they were meeting once a month or less. Mike recognized this but said he had a hard time meeting new people to go out with or finding people who were looking to make new friends instead of just chit-chatting while doing activities. He said he found it very hard to break into existing friend groups. He has some acquaintances, but not really anyone he feels close to. At the same time, he was going to more and more family functions just to fill the void and be social, and he doted on our nieces after they were born. After all of that was gone, he felt completely lost and spiraled downward but didn't know how to communicate how he felt until I forced the issue. I asked Mike if he would ever consider reconciling with the family if they reached out. He said, "Lisa, yes, Mom, maybe. Everyone else can get lost." I was a little surprised and asked why. He said that they basically told him what they really thought of him, his life, and his interests. He pulled out his phone and showed me the old texts from when I left. Multiple messages from our father calling him a disgrace, disowning him, demanding he return me to them, as if I were property. Calling him the mastermind of this plot to destroy the family, and all sorts of other terrible things. One uncle mocked his manliness for doing things like reading, he loves fantasy books, as well as his career. Engineering, for not being manly enough. One aunt threatened to physically hurt him, another uncle threatened to beat him up if he saw him again. More of the same from our grandparents, Dad's parents, and some other relatives on that side. I had received some nasty messages, just not the threats, and was shocked overall. But Mike just had a little smirk. When I gave him a questioning look, he just said that it's good to know how people really feel and where you stand with them. When I asked about Mom, he showed me her last few messages to him. I was expecting more of the same, but it was much different, and I am not sure what to make of it. She said, "Mom, your father needs you to bring her back right now." Mike, I can't do that. You know if I do, she will never be able to get out. Mom. I know, please take care of her. I love you both. Mike. I will. I love you too, Mom. Not going to lie, I cried after that. So yeah, it turns out my dad's whole family is a lot more toxic than I thought. We ended up talking much longer than I realized, and my roommates came back around 7 p.m. and asked if we wanted to get some dinner. My friend Nikki made sure to keep Mike engaged in the conversation, and after 10-15 minutes, he visibly relaxed. He sat back and looked comfortable, and was much more open. I was so happy for him. He ended up staying the night on our couch, and Sunday morning, he took me to breakfast before dropping me off at work. We had a long hug, and he thanked me for recognizing that he needed help. I told him that I love him, that I'll always be there for him, and that we are a team in this. So this is where we are now. He has some homework to do, finding some new things to try out and putting himself out there. I also told him that he has to have at least 2 dating accounts set up before we meet up again, and I would help him make a good profile. I know this will be a long and sometimes painful process, but I told him I'd be there for him every step of the way. Thank you again to everyone who responded with kindness, advice, and support. It meant a lot to both of us. Edit to the update. I wanted to respond to a few comments that were made before the post was removed. 1. I am definitely going to talk to the financial aid office about my situation and see if I can be considered an independent student for aid purposes. Thanks for the info on that, I did not know this was a thing. 2. I know he has everyone blocked except for our mom and sister. I know it hurts him that our nieces are likely going to grow up in that environment. 3. The extremely controlling part of my father didn't really come out until our grandparents, mom's parents, permanently moved to AZ. I think since we were all living in their house, it was grandpa that was the man of the house. Mike was already in college when that happened, so he didn't get the full extent of it. This also coincided with my sister discovering boys in 8th grade, so it could be a combination of both. My male cousins, 15 and 16, are already going down the path of my uncles and how they treat their older sisters, and it makes me sad that thought process is continuing. 4. He was always a great brother to both my sister and me. He doted on us when we were younger and made time to be with us. When he got a job and then when he came home to visit from college, work, he would take us both out individually for ice cream or something just to talk. This is something mom also did for all 3 of us. Even when we didn't have a lot of money, she took us out once a week to talk about whatever, even if we were just getting $1 McD's drinks and fries to share. 5. I think the dinner, hangout with my friends was the first time I had seen him interact in a casual social way with people he did not know. It really helped me to see how he first acted stoic and reserved and then saw him slowly ease into the conversation after a while. My friends made a point to keep him involved. My boyfriend, Rob, even got to talk a little about school stuff since Rob goes to the college that Mike did. They both went to my school's biggest rival. It was like as soon as he was able to relax and feel like a part of the room, he changed and was able to engage naturally. 6. He agrees he needs to treat his mental, emotional, and social health with the same priority and focus that he uses to help those he cares about and work on building new relationships. It will likely be a long and sometimes painful process for him, but he knows he has support. 7. He is working on setting up an appointment with a therapist through his employer's EAP to help him work through some of the issues I brought up in the update. I promised him I wouldn't judge him, but some of the things he said really scared me and broke my heart that he kept so much pain inside. 8. I hadn't seen the family texts he showed me before. They are all from when we first left, he just never deleted them. I think everyone is right that my mom is suffering from emotional abuse. I am worried for her, my sister, and my nieces in that regard. 9. I plan on, and have already started, doing more FaceTime, phone calls with him instead of just text to try and make a more personal connection with him. Update 2. I realized after my original post that I was way too close to the situation to give an accurate assessment of my family dynamics. I was trying to defend my parents at one point, so what was I thinking? I learned a lot by going through the comments here, and it made me think. Yes, my parents preached a lot about being a good Christian, obeying your father, etc., but there was more to it that was pointed out. I feel my father's family is a lot more narcissistic and controlling than is typical in our community. My mom's family was from the same church and was far more moderate. So looking now, it's hard to separate the church from the family. But in the end, it probably doesn't really matter. For sure, my father was the oldest son, even among his cousins, and was expected to set the example for the rest of the family. That didn't work out so well and was embarrassing for the whole family. My father wasn't able to get any further education after high school and has basically worked low-wage jobs his whole life. In some contrast, my uncles all went to trade schools and make a much better living than my father. Another hit to his pride. My mom eventually got some computer, office software training after I went to school and got a much better job. She makes more than my father now, But not so much more that she could support my sister, nieces on her own. My father does not want to raise more kids. He felt he was almost done. I was a senior about to graduate, and the girls were a lot more to handle than expected. This was also mentioned in the comments and is absolutely true. My father and uncles, and apparently my M15 and M16 cousins, act somewhat like a real-life version of King of the Hill, where they stand around, drink, and basically mock and talk badly about everything and everyone they don't like. My cousins are starting to turn into my uncles, and my two older female cousins, F17 and F19, are desperately trying to get out as well. Lots of talking about family members, not just my brother, behind their backs, and lots of drunken boasting. Specifically related to my brother, I think some commenters below are correct that a lot stems from jealousy that he makes more right out of school than they will probably ever make in their current paths. My uncles definitely think that any kind of office job is not manly. I have heard this line many times related to Mike. One thing I will give my father credit for is that he totally supported Mike's career path. There are plenty of other things my father had issues with, but the job was not one of them. I apologize that there was confusion on this. They all openly mocked Mike for his interest in reading, computer games, and robotics. He was part of our school's robotics club. They also didn't like that Mike did not like to do things like go hunting or fishing. They all seemed to forget that Mike also played football and was a starter at linebacker for our HS team. I don't know how to explain what a linebacker is to someone who isn't versed in American football other than someone on a seek and destroy mission for the person with the ball. This is somewhat why I think Mike would tear any one of my uncles apart. Like I said, my uncles are good at drunken bragging, and I think they would fall apart if actually confronted. I think the last thing I want to say is that I am worried about my sister, nieces, and mom. So is Mike. He never blocked their numbers. I think if they reached out to him and asked for help, he would instantly go. I don't know if that would be a good idea or not, but he would do it. He was a lot closer to mom, a bit of a mama's boy, to be honest. Sorry. And I think he would do it and figure out the rest later. Update 3. Emotional overload. I just spent the week with my mom, sister, and nieces after 3 years of no contact. This has been the most emotional week of my life. I am sitting here in my aunt's living room, watching my almost 4-year-old nieces sleep. I still can't believe it. Mike and I had been planning on visiting our grandparents and Aunt Kay and her family for a while. We left the day after my summer internship ended. We had no idea that they would also be visiting. My mom and Aunt Kay confirmed that they wanted to surprise us. Well, they succeeded. It feels like that giant void in my life is now gone. Thank you to anyone who has read and responded to my story. It has helped both Mike and me these last 18 months more than you will know. Love you all.